La boa noite. Welcome to the Portugal Show with me, Carl Munson, and expatsportugal.com. We're going to have a nice, leisurely, laid-back hour tonight. I suppose that's a bit selfish, really. I'm winding down at the end of my day in Portugal, and I realize that some of you, our transatlantic brothers and sisters, are actually only perhaps just after lunchtime. So maybe that's not such a bad thing to give you a taste of calm and tranquil Portugal in your afternoon there across the Atlantic. And of course, in Hawaii, as I discover when we do this show, it's before lunchtime, 11 o'clock, I believe, in Hawaii at the moment. So good morning to you if you're tuned in from there. Wherever you are, good evening to you. News, weather, and our special guest tonight, Phil Phippé Sylvain, is back. Hopefully, he hasn't checked in yet tonight. He might have had a little snooze in the chair. He does have a very comfortable chair that he sits in for the show, and he might have just dropped off after dinner or something like that. Maybe had one or two too many glasses of nice Portuguese red or something. I'm in that spirit myself tonight. A nice Alantasian red, keeping me company. A British cup of tea and a glass of water, just to make sure I've got all bases covered. Good evening to you, Steve. Thank you so much for your encouraging comments and support. Really appreciate it. Yes, lovely to reach the 400th episode of the podcast today. Really, I was thinking about it. And I sort of just religiously, I suppose, religiously do the shows. We do 2 a day in the weekdays now, so that soon adds up. And I was thinking, wow, 400. That's actually quite amazing, and I'm really proud of that achievement. And in as much as I get great feedback from people saying how it helps and keeps the pilot light lit and all that sort of stuff, and that's why we do it. So thank you for the validation, the support, the endorsement, the testimonials. Really appreciate all the feedback, just to know that we're not talking into the void. And your comments tonight, of course, talking into the void, it is an Ola Boa from Steve, who I mentioned just now. Who else is tuned in? Who are you? Where are you? What's the temperature like? Let's very quickly take a quick look at my new weather page that I've been, especially for you. I've been working things out in Fahrenheit. It's begun, folks. Here is the good morning, Portugal. It says there. That's our morning show. We always check in with the weather and the news for Portugal. Serious news for Portugal tonight. I'll go into that in just a moment. No sooner have we found out that Cristiano Ronaldo, number 7, has COVID, tested positive for COVID anyway. We discover that with a review from the government today, we are going back into a state of calamity. So that's bad news. But look, here the weather. Weather stays pretty consistent and constant in these crazy times. And look, you see what I've done for you there. And I'm going to do this with all the principal points that we check in with. 14 degrees. It's 10 o'clock in the evening here in Lisbon, and it's 14 degrees in the capital. 21 was the high today. And for you in bilingual meteorology, 57 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment, a high of 70 today. In Porto, currently 12, and the high was 66 today. In Porto, Coimbra, currently 12 degrees, nice moonlit sky, and the high was 19. 68, that would be, wouldn't it? And in Faro today, it's currently 17, and the high today was 78 for you there in Faro today, just to give you an idea. So let me know who you are, where you are, and what the weather's like where you are and where you're tuned in from. And maybe even you might want to go a little bit further and tell me what your interest in Portugal is. Do you want to come here? Are you just, I don't know, maybe just eavesdropping and having a little look, see what's going on, find out what this is all about, the Portugal Show. And good morning, Portugal. And formerly good evening, Portugal. And expats Portugal. Basically, we've got all the bases covered. We're helping people who are interested in Portugal find out more and get themselves over here. Boa noite from Southsea, from Mark Rigby. Always enjoy your company of an evening, Mark. Good evening to you. How are you doing? Anna Forsberg is here as well. Boa noite from Serpa in Alentejo. Yes, I imagine you've had quite a nice warm day there today too, Anna, in Alentejo. And yes, I'm sipping on one of your wines tonight. Not necessarily you personally. Oh, and D is checking in. Mike and D Brody, D and Mike Brody in Guimarães. What's it like there, D? Let us know. Would be lovely to have an on-the-spot report from you and Mike. Hope you're having a super time up there in the north of Portugal. I imagine that the temperature suits you both up there at the moment. Probably like an English autumn right now, right? Hola, boy night from Midwest USA from Chris Roberts. Hi, Chris. Midwest USA. So no more Holas Americas show, huh? We see what you think of us now. Oh, Chris, it's not like that. I promise you. Oh dear, I've made some real mistakes, I think, this week. I think Chris is just winding me up a little bit. But this slot on a Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evening is definitely focused at you transatlantic friends, okay? Everybody on the other side of the pond, North America and South America for sure, because we know it's a big ask, as you say over there, to join us at 2 or 3 in the morning when we go out at 9 o'clock Portuguese time. This will forever be your slot. It just, the name has changed. When I had so much trouble and I had so many corrections to make when I was talking about Hola Americas, that eventually I thought, oh, people are going to think that's about America as well, that show, if they chance upon it. I mean, surely it can't possibly go wrong if I call it the Portugal Show, which I've done now. But yes, it can, according to Chris Roberts. You American folks have not upset me. Not yet, anyway. So, yeah, you'll have to try harder, I think, basically. So let's have a look at this. Well, it's not devastating. I mean, it's pretty disappointing. And I'll share with you the update from the Portugal resident now. My favorite news source, a number of English-speaking news sources in Portugal News being one and Portugal Resident being the other. This is my personal preference, and I do enjoy the reporting by Natasha Don there. No particular credit to any author or journalist here, but Portugal, I'm afraid to say, goes back to calamity. Masks obligatory in busy streets. And I think, maybe there is a little bit of lost in translation. It sounds absolutely terrible, doesn't it? The state of calamity. But I think that's a direct translation from what the Portuguese would be for that. And as of midnight tonight, Portugal does return to this state of calamity, meaning masks must be worn in busy streets and in the workplace. Groups of more than 5 people are prohibited from gathering. That's my family in one go, that is, from gathering. And a number of other major restrictions will come in place. Said Prime Minister Antonio Costa early this afternoon, following an earlier than usual meeting of the Council of Ministers. Yeah, I would have thought that's normally mid-month, 15th or so, isn't it? But they've met early to discuss the rising number of COVID deaths and infections. I appeal to everyone, he says, to adopt these behaviours. It is to include them that we have raised the situation of alert. We were on a situation of alert, and now we are in full-on state of calamity. Fines are to be reinforced for anyone found breaking the rules, while the proposal to make the wearing of masks obligatory in the streets and workplace is to be put before Parliament. Do excuse me. I sipped a little too aggressively on my red wine just before the show, I think. Is to be put before Parliament, presumably later today. That will be this evening, and they may well be in session tonight, 14th of October. Stressed Mr. Costa, it will apply, obviously, with good sense, only in moments where there are more people in the street, i.e. in busy areas, like those currently most affected by the virus. Now, this is where it gets a bit complicated, isn't it? Because they say, this is what you have to do, and you can use common sense. That does leave rather a margin of interpretation and a grey area. Well, so be it. The decisions have been presented as the only way to safeguard, and these are the two phrases in inverted commas, the only way, and to safeguard, in inverted commas, from this article, both the SNS health system, that's the national public health system, and the continued functioning of schools, colleges, and university. In all these will be the 5 new rules. Groups limited to 5 people, as said, in streets, shopping malls, and restaurants. Weddings, baptisms, and family events limited to 50 people. Any kind of non-academic celebrations are banned outright. That's interesting, isn't it? So I guess if you have a fancy dress party, but all dressed up as teachers, that could work, and professors. I'm only kidding. So just trying to make a little light of the situation. And also, obviously, we do take it seriously here as well. But let's have some balance on this. Checks by police and the ASAE food and hygiene personnel to be reinforced, presumably with fines. And yes, fines of up to €10,000 for anyone breaking rules over physical distancing or the numbers of people allowed to meet. That's harsh. And I guess those first few will be used as an example to others not to do the same. Say reports, the government is also trying to make the download and use of Portugal's Stay Away COVID app obligatory in a work, school, academic context, as well as within the armed and security forces and public administration, meaning state workers of any kind. The decisions come as the country's hospitals in the areas worst affected by the virus, the north and the Lisbon/Valadatejo area, are starting to fill up with COVID patients. Sad news. Lisbon's Curry Cabral is reported to have more today. That's not an airport, a hospital, I beg your pardon, to have more today than it had since the start of the pandemic. Wards are full to the point that surgical wards are now being used to take patients suffering with consequences of the virus. In Porto's São João Hospital, intensive care is almost full, reports SIC Television, SIC Television News. Yes, it does sound weird when I say SIC Television. It's not some sort of niche channel that just shows sick stuff. It is SIC is the name of the broadcaster. Of 10 beds available, 8 are already taken up with COVID patients. That's not a huge intensive care ward, is it? With only 10 beds available there in the second biggest city. Anyway, among the more than 80 people in hospital today are 3 children and 1 pregnant woman, says SIC. Oh dear. One change for the better, however, is the decision to reduce quarantine time for asymptomatic carriers from 14 days to 10. Let's see. Yeah, that should help, shouldn't it? DGS health officials announced the change early this morning. For today's numbers, see their breaking news banner on Portugal Resident. Go to portugalresident.com for that. And that is Natasha Don, our favourite journalist, our favourite news source in English, the Portugal Resident. So, rather sobering news then from Portugal tonight. I can't see where my guest is this evening. Maybe he has fallen asleep in the chair. I did confirm him earlier on today. I better just check my Facebook Messenger to make sure I sent him the right message and that he can get in. Dear old Phil. Yes, the link has been sent. So if anybody wants to deputise tonight, you can give me a call and join me via WhatsApp or join me on the screen if you'd like to do that. I'm serious. I'm very open to questions and an open floor with people joining me if they feel moved to. Absolutely. I had a lovely evening on this same slot with Donna Jacqueline last night, our expat elder who brings comfort and words of wisdom to us on a Tuesday evening. And on Monday night, we had a lovely show with a load of people stateside chatting and just asking questions and basically hanging out. It was great evening on Monday as well. And the morning shows, having a lot of fun on the morning shows. I realized earlier on today that I have not talked very much, if at all, about Vasco da Gama. I was in Agadir yesterday. This is the town in Portugal made famous by its umbrellas. You've probably seen that picture. If you've seen any tourist guide at all of Portugal, you will have seen the umbrellas of Agadir. I was there yesterday, and there's a beautiful set of azulejo tiles with Rua Vasco da Gama. And I thought, yes, we must do something. And we will do. Tomorrow morning, we have Evan from Relish with us, who will be talking about their latest episode, which is great news. And we've got an aromatherapist coming in, hopefully on Friday, maybe not. But certainly in the next few days, we'll have our wonderful aromatherapist who may become a resident aromatherapist. That's the sort of guest we need in the studio to give us a demo, or give me a demo, basically. So, yeah, Phil Phippé is on the missing list at the moment. If anyone knows Canadian Phil, as I call him, give him a shout, give him a buzz on his phone, and see if we can reel him in for tonight. I do have something else to tell you about, which I will do in just a moment. But let me just see if there is a sort of a space developing between me and Chris Roberts, or if Chris was just joking. Clicking on the new comments. Here they come. Common sense is not common, says Charles. That's a very wise thing to say, Charles. We know that, don't we? Common sense, it makes sense, but it's not very common. Absolutely. And phew, Chris was just kidding. My goodness. Okay, I'm relieved. I thought you might be. I'm relieved to see and hear that, though, Chris. Thanks for your company this evening. Bon night, Carl. First time caller in quarantine. Oh, no. Having been in my house in Ulhos d'Água last week, now in Glasgow. Very sad. I'm so sorry to hear that, Alex. Back for a couple of weeks then in Glasgow. And, I tune into the UK news, and it's a sorry picture over there for sure. And I know that your leader of the Scottish Assembly tends to sort of go in harder than... it's almost like she's playing a political game with Boris and wanting to sort of, prove the case for independence by taking a very strong line on this. That's only my personal view. I don't know what you think of that, Alex. I guess you've got other things on your mind, like how the hell are you going to manage 2 weeks locked inside your house, having had a nice time in Portugal, presumably. Lauren, hello, Lauren. Great to see you again tonight. Bon night, Carl. Bon night to you. and your partner, Andrew, I believe. Forgive me if I've got that wrong, but I think it's Lauren and Andrew over there. Question about the wine tonight. How do we know what wine to find before you guys meet? That's a really good question. And I'll just come back to that because D is giving us a very quick report of Guimarães. Really beautiful city. Everything is made of granite. Stunning. High radon readings. I believe you get quite a high radon reading, don't you, with granite? I'm from Devon, and I know D is too. And the lot of granite used, and the moors are made of granite there, aren't they? And you can tend to get a high radon reading. Totally useless facts. Could be useful in a pub quiz at some point. Have a super time in Guimarães, Mike and D. Have a lovely evening there. Perhaps turning in, or are you just getting ready to go out and paint the town red like your dress in the your profile pic there, D? I don't know if you're going to hit the clubs hard, but if you're going to, it's best to do it tonight because big groups and more limits being put on social behavior. So maybe party like it's 1999 in Guimarães tonight. Lots of love to you both. Right, so this question about the wine, Lauren. Question about the wine night. How do we know what wine to find before you guys meet? I'll show you the wine that's been chosen for tomorrow. We have a group called the Wine Ninjas, and we take it in turns. Where we've got to at the moment, and I'll tell you our thinking about this. You know, we have basically gone into a rota system. We have Gary Austin, Garvo, and we have Frank and Rachel, who are up tomorrow night with this selection. If I can get it on the screen for you. Very fine looking bottle of vino this is. And let me see if I can share this for you. And we have Neil in Alentejo, who I think will very often choose an Alentejano wine. Why wouldn't he? I mean, it's amazing, the wine of Alentejo. We have the hiccuping headmistress, Eloise Healy, who really surprises us. She came up with that Clockwork orange wine that we tried. No citrus is harmed in the making of that wine, though, you should know. And occasionally I'll lead it. But we realize that we probably need to get a little bit more ahead of the selections. We tend to name it on the night what it will be for next week. And sometimes there's a little bit of a delay. And we only give people a couple of days or 3 or 4 days to find it in Portugal, which is okay if you're in Portugal. But as you're asking, Lauren, and presumably you would like it shipped out to you, you're going to need a longer lead time. So not to give too much away because we haven't confirmed it yet, but we are thinking about, and this is connects beautifully with our association, our deepening and growing association with expatsportugal.com in how we work as a wine club with both communities, Good Morning Portugal and expatsportugal.com. I think the best thing to do would be for us to team up with a distributor and to choose the wines as maybe a box of 4 or 6 and then ship that crate. And then we've got it all mapped out for 4 or 6 weeks ahead. We'll still have the Wine Ninjas choosing from the catalogue what they fancy and taking us through it. But that's how we're going to do it. Sorry, it's short notice at the moment. I mean, if you want to join us tomorrow night, then find something. A merchant will be able to give you an approximation from the grapes that are used here. It is a single grape on this wine, so that should be a little bit easier. And somebody who knows about wine will be able to advise on what will be the closest grape to the single grape that's used in this Alentejano Espanol Verdelho Alentejo Branco 2018. So I hope that helps. And clearly it's going to get better. Because it was kind of accidental, really, that we got into this. I got chatting to Eloise. I think we did a wine tasting, just the two of us. Then others have joined us on the screen. We have a show in England called the Gogglebox, where it's people being filmed whilst watching TV. And that's what it's a bit like with the wine club. It's like Gogglebox, but with wine. So, you know, all sorts of things can and do happen. So I hope that answers your question, Lauren. Alex Fullerton, you're right, Carl Nicola is rather tough. Okay, so it's not just me who thinks that. Yes, she goes in hard with her measures, doesn't she? And I think likes to show or attempt to show Boris who is boss. What a time for politics, eh? Got a pandemic to sort out, and it's so party political, isn't it? And so polarized at the moment. I will be glad to see the back of all of this. I really will, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that. Absolutely not. So this is the Portugal Show with me, Carl Munson, with expatsportugal.com. Do sign up. Let me just run this banner across the bottom of the screen of ticker tape, and you will see where to go to do that. Join our community free at expatsportugal.com. If you trade up to being a premium member, only €25, you will get a value package, a load of discounts and benefits by being a premium member. And obviously, you will help us do our work at expatsportugal.com as well. And the number to call, if you do want to give me a buzz and come through and have a chat on either by phone or join me on the screen, up to you. I will put the number up now as well. That will be 351 is the country code for Portugal, of course, 913-590-303. If you feel moved to talk to me like it's a phone in, go ahead, give that number a call. It's WhatsApp. Organize a bottle of whiskey for the man cave and then a timed race to the bottom of the same. What could possibly go wrong with that, Eugene? Great. A great and typical comment from you, sir. And obviously whiskey with an E there, the Irish type. So I think we should, that's going to be our virtual Christmas party, Eugene, isn't it? The Man Cave Christmas special, where we have a timed race, not to the bottom of the hill or the top of a mountain, but to the bottom of a glass, or but not just a glass, a bottle of whiskey. My goodness. Are we man enough? Are we mad enough? Gogglebox is awesome. The US version is a poor copy, says Chris Roberts. Oh, okay. So yeah, it's often the way, isn't it, that these shows are syndicated both sides of the water. Yeah, Gogglebox is a lot of fun, isn't it? And you do develop a fondness for the characters on there. Still no sign of my guest tonight. Phippé is his nom de plume, but no sign of him this evening. So maybe he's working on Canadian time or something like that. But I will tell you about Ask Our Expats. This is a new service that we are launching with expatsportugal.com. A friendly team of people we have hand-selected to help you find your dream lifestyle in Portugal. And people who want to become consultants in this way are welcome to make contact and join the team. But here's the idea. Imagine connecting with someone who's already experienced moving to Portugal or living in an area you are keen to explore for your potential new home. Now, imagine you can connect with this person and that they are happy to share their knowledge with you on a one-to-one basis, either by phone, online, or even in person. Or perhaps you're already living in Portugal, yet looking to relocate elsewhere within the country. Imagine finding a new friend prior to making the move. Ask Our Expats is about showing you around a place you're considering for your new home, sharing with you the local facilities, including schools, shopping centres, the most popular restaurants, or even where the best hairdresser is. Yes, and I would add to that taxi firm, the Churrasqueira, barbecue chicken place. Where else would I take you? Yeah, I think probably the best baker as well. Perhaps sports and leisure important to you. Does your potential new hometown have these facilities? Found a house or piece of land but need someone to do a personal unbiased inspection for you? Ask about healthcare, real estate, community events and entertainment on offer. Perhaps you have hobbies you would like to pursue and keen to connect with others in Portugal with the same interests, such as golf or self-sufficiency. Those are very interesting constituencies, aren't they? And they are strong constituencies. It's an interesting Venn diagram. I think I'm probably one of the few people where the circles overlap of golf and self-sufficiency. I'd be happy to be challenged on that, but I think that's true. Or just have a chat, make a new friend and put your mind to rest about those unanswered questions you have. So that's the idea. Here are a few of the flags in the map already. Looks like we need someone up in Guimarães, D, and certainly over Guarda Way. There are some opportunities opening up with this in terms of consultants. And here are some of the people who can tell you about Tamar, La Area, Alvaiazara, Castelo David. Did I say Tamar already? Marvão, Humberto there. So what we've done, we haven't made people, oh, look, there's him. We haven't given a particular person the responsibility of an area because different people have different lifestyles, don't they? So you might want to talk to a family-oriented person. You might want to talk to somebody who's a bit more mobile, a single person. You might want to talk to somebody who reflects and matches your interests better than just having one person fits all for a region. So we're open to new people who want to talk to other people about Portugal, and we're certainly open to people who want to find out in this way. This is how it works: guided and in-person tours, online personal tours, and Zoom, Skype, or Messenger, or other webinar type technology of your choosing, obviously. And you can book it on there. I don't think that's fixed up yet. Or you maybe just click through. This is brand new this week. That's why I don't know exactly how it works. But I am delighted to be one of the helpers here. And I can tell you about Lisbon. I can tell you about Aveiro, Coimbra, and where I live here in Anadia. And as you can see there, homesteading, Portuguese wines, and meditation. And I do need to put golf on there, even though I really don't find very much time to play golf. Okay, so Phippé, definitely on the missing list tonight. We were hoping to look at the story. Actually, I might work through this myself in his absence. This is turning into a good idea on the spot here. No one in Alentejo when it comes to showing people around. Well, there is an opportunity for you, Anna. Do you fancy that? No expats here. There are plenty of expats there. There just isn't one that's come and stepped forward yet. So maybe that's got your name on it, Anna. Let me just tell you, if you are interested in doing that, what you need to do is send an email to ask@expatsportugal.com for an application form and be part of the team. And then I'll see you at the annual do of the Ask Our Expats get together. And we'll have some fun. And I'm sure Portuguese wine will be involved, isn't it always? So, yes, if that's for you, drop an email to that address, Anna. Making connections like that sounds useful. What I would like right now is a native speaker that wants to do a language exchange, talking and correcting written messages. The apps are filled with people thinking they are dating apps. Whoops. Okay. Yeah, I can see how that might happen, Chris. Well, with your guidance and help, I'm sure we can set that up. And we've got the forum at expatsportugal.com. Have you tried making that suggestion on there? And I mean, there are Portuguese people there. Anna might even be interested in doing that. I might be volunteering Anna for that one. Yeah, I mean, that's a lovely idea. That you're basically like a pen pal, really, right? Who's a Portuguese speaker, European Portuguese speaker, who might be a little bit like a pen pal. Okay, let's PM me about that, and we'll see what we can do about it, because I think that's a cracking idea. Anna, not for me yet. Still looking for our place in Portugal. All right, we'll give it 6 months, Anna, and you'll be an expert. If you're immersing yourself, as it sounds like you are, I'm sure you'll have lots to tell people, certainly in a year's time. And then within 2 or 3, I'm sure you can be a great resource for other people. But yeah, keep it in mind. And I'll do what I can to find you someone in Alentejo if that's what you need as well. So do let me know again, PM me if you wish to. Right. This story that was going to be told tonight, CSI, Portuguese ancient history. Let's see what we can find here. Let's go into it ourselves and see if we can solve a bit of this mystery, shall we? This is about Martim Moniz. If you've been to Lisbon, and this applies to me as well. Anna, just before we go, yes, I'm on. So in 12 months, let's talk again, Anna, and have you as the helper in Alentejo. What a lovely territory to be part of and to share with other people. That's an easy job, isn't it? And just that, what a great region to have and to be an ambassador for. Absolutely wonderful. Okay, the only time I've heard really of Martim Moniz is the tube station, this metro station named after him in Lisbon. So who really was Martim Moniz in the conquest of Lisbon in 1747? Martim Moniz, there is, okay, so Martim, you're going to pronounce the M as an N, and you're going to pronounce the Z. I'm going to go with Martim Moniz, and there is a plaque with the story, which is in Portuguese, and I won't dare attempt to translate that right now. We'll see. We'll work our way through this story and see if we can find out more. And normally, Phil Phippé Sylvain would be here to do this. With his lovely laid-back Canadian style, but it's going to be me tonight, and we'll see how far we get with this. The legend of Martim Moniz says that he was a knight that blocked the gate from closing with his body and let in his comrades who conquered Lisbon in 1147. So quite a lot was at stake that day. Is it true, yes or no? Peter asks, and this is Peter. Peter explores Portugal, who is Philip's son. And it was this whole website idea, storytelling idea came from when Peter visited Portugal as a boy, really. He's a young man now. But Dad, Phil, has carried on with this tradition of scratching the surface and looking a little deeper into the stories and the history and the culture. And of course, as we do this, we learn more about the language at the same time. So let's see if we can go into this it's a PowerPoint basically of what happens with Martim Moniz. I think this may well be, that's Peter as a little lad when he came over to Portugal. And I'm going to see how this works now, if it works. I'm not sure. I'm making this up as I go along, just in case you hadn't guessed. So Pete and Pops, that's Phil. They are looking at the conquest of Lisbon and Óbidos. I'm going to have to keep popping backwards to these slides. Part 1, Martim Moniz. Do you use glasses? Asked Pops. Yes, I looked at the fossils in your den, I say. What do you want to do with the glasses? Asked Pops. I don't know, I say. We finish breakfast and stroll through the Prasa. We come across a plaque with the story of Martim Moniz. Pops reads it, and thankfully, I think this is the translation here. The legend of Martim Moniz says he was the knight that blocked the gate from closing with his own body and let in his comrades who conquered Lisbon in 1147, says Phil. Is it true? Yes or no? Asked Peter. I don't know, but I know how to discover the truth, says Pops. That's quite a claim from a father, isn't it? So let's go with that. And we find out that my name is Pete. I'm 6 years old. I live in Canada with my mum. But for the summer holidays, I'm with my Pops in Lisbon. How exciting would that be when you're 6? We're in Praça Martim Moniz, where I'm eating a pastel de nata and drinking a galão. And this is great because it gives you a little bit of insight into the culture. Pastel de nata, of course, all of you know what that is. But a galão is the closest you're going to find to a latte. Very milky coffee, often in a tall glass, right? I pull out the glasses from my bag and Pop's eyes widen, showing surprise that I have them. And at that point, I'm going to take a little sip of my British tea. Bear with me just 1 minute. And we see here, Nuno Mendes, we're correct so far that Martim Moniz definitely threw his body into the door such that his comrades could come in and conquer Lisbon. So we're definitely on the right track. Thanks, Nuno, for that real Portuguese person validation of the story so far. Very helpful to us. Thank you very much. All right, so next slide. My hands are trembling. They are speaking, I say. What are they saying? Asked Pops. This is Phippé, Phil. Wait, let me listen, I say. One is speaking English and the other is speaking French, says little Pete. And there's some interior shots there for your enjoyment. And these are little collages that Phil makes. Next slide. We walk along the Rua Garet. There is a Basilica dos Martires, says Phil. Where are we here? Asked Pete. It's where we're going to discover if the legend is true, and the plaque says it's open. Phil tells the boy. Now let's see, where are we in this story now? Because my slides are getting all mixed up here. Let's have a look at this one. Who are you? I ask. My name is William of Suffolk, says the Crusader on the right. He sounds a bit British, doesn't he? My name is Raymond of Dieppe, says the Crusader on the left. So it's an Anglo-French crusade here. My name is Pete of Canada, and I'm here with my dad. I say, fantastic. And we'll go on to the next slide. Where are we? Oh, I see. We might be jumbled up here. The route of the Second Crusade ships. King Afonso Henriques, through the Bishop of Porto, negotiated with the Crusaders on their pilgrimage to the Holy Land to help attack Lisbon. Okay, so a picture is developing. Interesting, we see here Dartmouth. I mentioned Devon earlier on, didn't I? Dartmouth is in Devon in England. And it looks like King Afonso Henriques, who I saw a bottle of wine with his name on it. That's how I learn a lot about history and culture, is through the wine. I don't want you to think, though, that I'm a terrible lush and reprobate, but it looks like a little bit of wheeler dealing has caused an Anglo-French crusade to land in Porto and Lisbon and to take possibly both back from the people who are currently occupying. And maybe we'll find out who those people are right now. Okay, so I wish Phil was here to tell me if this was the right sequence. The siege of the city of Lisbona, the name of Lisbon in 1147. There was a big wall with a very big iron gate. Presumably, this is in the Rua de Padaria, which it wouldn't have been called then, I don't suppose. And that rather nice building there, which will be worth the millions of euros now, certainly wouldn't have been at the time. But that is the place, the right place that we're looking at there. So we made siege engines, and these are nice drawings that Pete and Phil have worked up. What a great dad, doing these designs with his lad who's come over to see Canada. Come over from Canada to see Portugal. The mangonel catapults for breaking down the Roman walls of the Moors. Okay, so there was a Moorish occupation of Lisbon, and the Crusaders have come to make their way in. A ram for forcing through iron gates, and we built a mobile tower. So the heavy lifting gear is in position in 1147 in Lisboa, and at the time known as Lisbona. Okay, here we go. The siege begins. On the iron gate, we used the battering ram, but it was burned by Moorish flaming arrows. Wow, counterattack by the Moors on the technology. And we're going to actually, this is helpful. The slides have got numbers on them, but they're a bit too small for me to see. Here we go. This is I am going in the wrong direction, but I still think you'll get the gist. In the first battle, we used a battering ram, a war machine, from which we fell the walls and the doors of besieged cities. And look at that fantastic castle there. That's pretty awesome, isn't it? And let's go to, can I see 17 at this this size of scale on the screen? Let's have a look. In the second wave, we used mangonel catapults to try to break the wall. Still not happening, it would appear. And then, oh no, they're fighting back with us. I hope when Phil sees the replay of this, he'll think I've done it justice. And there we go. A little bit of a graphic there to show you how these catapults are working. Brilliant. And we had spent much time with the attack of the wall. Our war machines were burned by the enemy. We were sad. I can imagine. That's quite a day out. So part 3 here. Oh, hold on a minute. I think I've got to the end of the story there. Or am I reading 2 stories at the same time? Oh, Phil, I need you so badly right now. I think the story just disappeared there. It's a sad end to the fire stops play with the siege of the castle, as we try to find out whether it's true, if Martim Moniz did manage to get his body in the door and let his comrades through. And I'm sorry, everybody. I'm not sure we're going to find out this evening. Oh dear, oh dear. Okay, now hold on a minute. No, we might just do that. No, that's the same story, but in Portuguese. I'm glad I didn't try and read that one to you. And a reenactment there in Óbidos. Okay, so it's gone very random, and I've lost the plot because I haven't got my guest tonight. But there you go. That's show business. Sometimes that happens, doesn't it? Never work with animals, children, or Canadian storytellers. Okay, Nunu's going to help us out, though. That said, he's already said that that's the right legend of Martim Moniz. He could be a bastard child of the king, Dom Afonso Henriques, but who knows? Well, I think Phil thinks he does know, because he takes a kind of CSI approach to this, sort of a forensic look at all the history, and then makes a good guess on it. But we'll have to find out another time. The good old days when going to Lisbon, you only risk getting dysentery or scurvy. Good times. Good times indeed. But I mean, isn't it interesting you say that, Chris? But these may well be the times where, you got the earthquake, haven't you, of Lisbon? And then 2020, maybe the pandemic times. I mean, I know it's a global phenomenon, but isn't it interesting how that might be looked at in time and years to come, in the way that we're looking back at this history now? So I'm so sorry. I can't throw any light or fiery arrows or anything on the legend of Martim Moniz. We'll have to find out from Phil on another occasion, when we get him on the show. I hope he's okay. I really do. And what I'll do is I will share some more news with you, or take a few questions. I'm not going to disappear. I'll stick around, and of course, and please ask any questions you've got about moving to Portugal, about Portugal. And also, the crosstalk is often very good among yourselves as well. So if you see that, for example, we've got Anna in Alentejo, she might well be able to help you out a little bit with a little bit of information thus far on her journey in Alentejo. And Steve, yes, what a cliffhanger indeed. I bet you're on the edge of your seat, weren't you? You'll have to wait. It's like, Do you remember? Obviously, in the days of TV when you had to wait a week, now people binge watch, don't they? And it's like, I can't wait a whole 30 seconds for the credits. I mean, that's the thing now, isn't it? On Netflix, it says, avoid the intro. People are so impatient. Not only do they not have to wait a week anymore to see the next episode, they can go straight to it and avoid the opening titles and just keep cracking on with their box set and sit there for, whatever it is, 3, 4, or 5 hours at a time. Times have changed. It wasn't like that when I was a lad. Anyway, I'm going to go back to the Portugal resident now and give you a little taste of the news in Portugal today. Do prompt me, influence and persuade me. If there's anything you want to know about particularly, I'll be very glad to help. But I think a little comb through the news is no bad thing to give you an idea of what's going on here. As I said before, Cristiano Ronaldo in isolation after testing positive. This is, I don't know how much soccer news gets to you from Europe. I guess some people are very interested, the real sports fans. But generally speaking, I don't know how much of this would get to you. But so you may not know that Cristiano Ronaldo is in isolation after testing positive for COVID-19. A great footballer, obviously, one of the best in the world, one of the best ever. And the other part of it, of course, is how much he's loved and what a good bloke he seems to be. Well, apart from the allegations against him in certain cases, which have yet to be proven, let's go with the love for him in this country and his native, I think it's Madeira. He comes from one of the autonomous regions from the islands, and I think it's Madeira. You may well have seen this statue that was put up there where everyone looked at it and thought, and I think it had to be redone. But anyway, he's tested positive for COVID-19 and is in isolation. The footballing legend is asymptomatic and feeling fine with these new rules. He will only be quarantined for, as he's asymptomatic, for 10 instead of 14 days. He's feeling fine, but his condition means he cannot play in the Nations League match between Portugal and Sweden. That would have happened today, wouldn't it? Tonight. His positive test result follows fellow players Mario Rui and Antonio Lopes, also knocked out by COVID. The rest of the team playing in tomorrow's game has tested negative, as you might expect. Oh, wonderful. Tonight, 7:45. Somebody might be able to tell me the result even. Kick-off at Alvalade Stadium in Lisbon, scheduled for 17:49 earlier this evening. So get well soon, Cristiano, number 7. All the best to you for a speedy recovery. Good news to hear that you're asymptomatic and that you should be back on the pitch soon and continuing your good work as a wonderful global representative of Portugal and the projection screen, the recipient of much love and affection from all of the Portuguese people in Portugal and all around the world, of course. Okay, what else is there in the news that you might like to look at? I want to focus on some of the happier things. We have got the Formula One happening in Portimao soon. Hopes there of the pandemic, or the worst effects of the pandemic, being uplifted a little bit by the limited amount of people who can go and watch the Formula One at Portimao very soon. Open letter to Health Minister. There's no tragedy greater than this. I think we know that by now. Importing vehicles into Portugal, that has been the source of much controversy and bitterness, I have to tell you. And it's my pleasure to tell you also that is on the way out. Okay. The tax, I don't know how many Americans would think seriously about shipping a vehicle over. Maybe if it's a vintage or a brand you're especially attached to, you might be thinking of doing that. And import duties were severe. Actually, and they might still be for Americans. That hadn't occurred to me until me uttering it just now. The ISV tax on imported used cars is to be scrapped finally. Portugal has been in a battle with the European Union about this. So I'm guessing it might be just imports from other parts of the EU. So forget I even mentioned it, folks, because that will be another matter altogether. I don't know what the situation is regarding cars coming in from the US, but I will find out. And I hear a lovely little sound to let me know that our guest for the evening is here. And we might be able to pick up in the last 15 minutes. Good evening, Phil. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Well, I tried to tell the story on my own, and it just wasn't the same without you. It really wasn't. So how are you?
I'm good. So I guess I was in the wrong version of StreamYard. So I just
Oh,
switched
yeah.
to the other version and now I'm in.
Have you been waiting since 10 o'clock to join me?
Yes, I have
Oh,
been.
that's awful. I'm so sorry. So sorry to hear that that's what happened to you.
Okay.
Well, there'll have to be an inquest about that for sure, an inquiry
Well,
to
I took
find
the
out.
chance and I thought, well, I haven't heard anything. Well, maybe I got the wrong version of StreamYard.
Wow, okay. And that link just took you to a bad place or no place at all.
No place at all.
Oh dear, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry to everybody. I'm so Britishly sorry right now, and we're very good at in England. I can tell you. Couple of comments, and then we'll get back to that story because it has been. Look, Steve Merwin in the States is saying, "What a cliffhanger!" Because I wasn't able to get to the bit where we found out if he did chuck his body in the doorway and let his comrades in or not. I'm stuck at the point, Phil, where the where all the kit, all the technology has been set on fire by the Moors. That's where we got to in the story. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
And just very, very quickly, if you were someone going to Portugal for the first time, where would you go to eat first? A must-eat place here. I'll wait for a few more comments to answer that, but I will certainly give you my answer before the end of the show, and I'm sure Phil will as well. Yes, Madeira, we first heard when we visited the island some years ago. So yes, Cristiano. Number 7, Ronaldo, is from Madeira. Right,
Yeah.
Phil, what resources do we need to put on the screen? Do I go to your website for this?
Yeah. Go to my website and
All
go down
right.
towards the bottom of the left column
Got it.
and look.
And is it this one?
That's it. And then just click on that, and that comes up
Yep.
the first slide.
Oh, I'm not getting that.
So,
Where do I click?
okay.
What I found
No,
was I found
you're there.
a collage. Oh, I am
You're
there, am I?
there. Yeah, you're there. Okay.
We are.
So, okay. There. Yes, I need to see it too. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So this is a story about Martim Moniz. And if you go to the Praça Martim Moniz, you're going to come across a plaque that tells a summary of the story. So the legend of Martim Moniz says he was the knight that blocked the gate from closing with his body and let in his comrades who conquered Lisbon in 1147.
Mm.
And
I did my best. I did my best to articulate that bit.
and so this story has been around for hundreds of years. And in fact, it's even been taught to the children in school as the truth. And if you go to the subway stop, you see, oh, okay, there's that piece of artwork showing Martim Moniz between the closing doors.
Yeah.
So the praça's named after him. The subway's named after him. There's a Martim Moniz street in almost every Portuguese city and probably several of the Portuguese towns. So he's a famous guy, and it's all about his role in the castle. So if you can go to the next slide.
Now I've got no live link on this particular bit. The only thing I was able to find was your stories of Lisbon, which does link through to a few of the images that I went through, as in this one.
Yeah. Okay, that's not where we want to be. We want to be.
Okay.
If you click on the down arrow on the slide we were just on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that will get us to the next there. Okay, so go over to the left column.
Yeah.
Okay, and then down there, and see there who really was Martim Moniz. Click on that, and then click.
Okay, here we go. So here's your set of slides here.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So do I click the first one? He died
Yeah.
before the conquest? Okay. Thank goodness you're here, Phil. Really.
So I did some research about him, and um, I found three historians who talked about him and gave a little bit of information about him. And apparently he was the son of Igas Moniz, who was a nobleman who was part of the court of Afonso Henrique's father, so Dom Henrique. And so he was the son of Igas Moniz, and he was a captain in the army of Afonso Henrique, and he fought in the Battle of Ourique, but he died in the Battle of Ourique, according to one of the historians. So Nunes writes that Martim Moniz morto na batalha de Ourique. So he died in the battle, and that was 8 years before the conquest of Lisbon.
Whoops.
So now the question, yeah. So the question is, and you can see a picture over there, that doorway is called the Moniz Doorway, and it's in the castle. But this view is the view on the other side of the doorway, and most of the time you don't have public access to it. And you see there's a plaque and a bust of Martim Moniz. So the question is, why is there a bust of him at Castel Saint George over the gate with his name when he didn't participate in this battle? He died 8 years before. So
it's a very good question. A very good question, Phil.
So next slide.
There we go. The genealogy.
Yeah, the genealogy. And then I looked up the genealogy, and the genealogy shows that he was the direct descendant of a count of João Rodrigues de Vasconcelos e Sousa. So he was a count of Castelo Mayor, which means the best castle, and he was the 10th grandson of Martim Moniz. Now, when I was looking through the genealogy, there were several unusual entrants. Like, there were different stories the genealogy told you about who was really the descendants of Martim Moniz. So it looked a bit fishy to me. So let's go to the next slide.
Okay. There you go. Porta named after him.
Yeah, so there was this Porta named after him. Now, it's not the exact spelling of him. It's Porta de Moniz, but back in the 16th century, Moniz, they were, you saw different spellings, especially reversing S's and Z's. Like, my wife's last name is Pedrosa with an S. When we went to her father's tomb, there were all kinds of Pedrosas with a Z. So this is a common mistake. Now, the problem is I found, here is an engraving by George Brown and Franz Hogenberg, who went all over Europe making engravings of cities, and they did in a city. And I looked at of just the part of the castle, and that this is part of a huge, actually, this engraving is several feet by several feet, and it was just one area of the engraving that was only a few inches by a few inches. And so I saw, oh, okay, Porto de Moniz, and I looked at the date, 1598. So that's way before the time of when this engraving and this bust were made by this Vasconcelos. So I thought, well, was it real then? You know, was there really a Moniz? And did this bust really be made because of what's his name? Enrique. Afonso Enriquez. So that plaque that was there said that Afonso Enrique wanted a plaque to be made of his hero, Martim Moniz. So then I looked at, well, what does Martim Moniz, or what does Moniz mean in Spanish? Because this is when the Spaniards ruled Portugal in 1598. And then I found, if you can zoom in, can you zoom in on that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Oh no, I can only go so far. Or did that work?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I just want to show people what Moniz actually means, and
yeah,
it means nice things. It means finery. So it turns out what that porta was for, it was the entrance to a mall, an outdoor mall that was just outside of the king's palace, and also near the palace of the bishop, and it connects to a street that's Rua Mercado, which means stores. So it means that it had a different meaning. It wasn't named after Martim Moniz. It was the name of this entrance to this mall in Spain. Yeah. So now the plot thickens.
of course.
So fake story is the next slide.
Here. Oh, what? Oh, I think it's because I blew the screen up. Let me just go back to the original size, and we should be able to do a little bit better than that. We've jumped straight to the conclusion. Didn't want to do a spoiler there. Fake story. No, that's what it seems to be going to when I click on fake story. Should I? Is that right?
That's true. Yeah,
oh,
that's
okay.
right. That's the slide.
Yeah.
So Don João Rodrigues de Vasconcelos y Sousa, the Count of Castelo Mayor, to enhance his reputation, faked his genealogy, is what I found, rebranded a street name, and sponsored a bust and a plaque. And he did this to show he was a descendant of a Portuguese hero and not a sympathizer of Spain. Because this is in 1546, I think it is. And this was a time when there was a civil war going on in Portugal. And it was the beginning of what resulted in a 28-year war between Portugal and Spain for the Portuguese to overthrow their Spanish overlords. And there were people being assassinated who were Spanish sympathizers. And one of the assassinations was of a guy named Vasconcelos as well. I don't believe he was a relative, although he might have been a cousin. And he was shot and then dragged out of his office and thrown out a window. And then once his body hit the street, because he was dead by then, people dragged him through the street.
Yeesh.
So yeah, so it was not a good time to be a Spanish sympathizer, and that's why João Rodrigues de Vasconcelos wanted to appear that he was a Portuguese patriot. And that's why he rigged this whole thing, faked the genealogy, rebranded a street name, and sponsored a bust and a plaque. So
Yeah.
that really the story behind Martim Moniz and how this story came to be. So it was faked. It's fake news.
Early fake news.
Yeah, early fake news. And so what really happened during the capture of Lisbon in 1147 was actually quite different from this story. So it wasn't a guy throwing himself in the doorway to prevent a door from being closed and his comrades getting in, and that's how they won the castle. The story about that conquest is actually well documented. It's well documented in the De Expugnatius. My Latin is not so good these days. Lisbonense. So on the conquest of Lisbon is an eyewitness account by this Latin-speaking, Latin-writing, Anglo-Flemish chaplain, probably of Hervé de Glanville, and he's documented in this document, Hervé de Glanville, who's from the army of the East Anglia. So what was interesting about the conquest is the third actually go to the next slide and I'll talk about the crusade. So the Third Crusade, many English people know, was led by, a king, was led by Richard III. But the Second Crusade didn't have any kings, didn't have any royalty at all. It was all low-level people that were in the Second Crusade, and it's because there was a civil war going on in England at the time, and that was the civil war between King Stephen and Empress Matilda, who came over from France to invade. So that's why they didn't get any royalty involved in it. So the Second Crusade started on the 16th of June, 1147, with 167 ships with almost 15,000 crusaders on board. And now, 167 ships, that sounds like a lot, but you got to remember back then a ship was not a ship like today. So back then they were about the size of a small yacht. They were basically two different types of ships. One type was more like a Viking ship, that was oars, very small sail. And the other type of ship was what's called a bark, which is one big sail, some oars, and generally a little bit wider than a typical Viking ship. So these 167 of them set off to go to the Middle East to fight, and they were to fight against the Muslims who had won at Odessa, and they got caught in a storm in the Bay of Biscay, which is still a very stormy, treacherous bay.
Oh, yes.
And, yeah. So they got caught there. They were dispersed, and so they stopped in Porto, and they stopped there for quite a few weeks until they all could get gathered back again. And the Bishop of Porto told the king about this, that, hey, we've got these, 15,000 crusaders here. The king said, you know what? Show them a good time and get them to stay, and then convince them to come down to Lisbon and help me conquer Lisbon. So that's what happened. That's how that whole battle started.
Well, that doesn't happen every day, does it? 15,000 crusaders turning up on your doorstep.
No. And so, yeah, he took advantage of it, and that was actually pretty typical of Afonso Henrique, that he would take advantage of situations. And so he did. Next slide.
And onward to Lisbon. Yes, because I did detail a little bit of the technology used at the time. So I did speak a little bit about these.
Okay.
They were very, very impressive.
Yeah. So they used three things, and actually there's a fourth thing that was also used by, there was a German contingent who was with them, and they tried mining the walls, so that then they got a partial collapse of one part of the wall, but then the Moors were able to beat them back.
Wow.
So these three pieces of technology, the first piece that they used a ram to try and get through the iron gate. There was a big iron gate, and it was a very tough gate to get through, and they weren't able to force their way through before the Moors fired all kinds of flaming arrows, and the ram caught on fire. So then the next thing they tried to do is they used a bunch of mangonels. So mangonels, kind of like a catapult, only it's mandrolic. It's people pulling down to get it to fling its rocks or other things that you might throw. You might throw flaming balls, for example. But in this case, they were throwing rocks, and the rocks were not able to penetrate through the walls, so they weren't able to get through. And then the next thing they did is they had a mobile tower, and it was about 80 feet tall.
What?
Yeah, and they wheeled it up to the wall, but it got stuck in the sand. You got to remember, back then, water levels were much higher. The whole world was warmer back then, so there was less ice in the polar caps, and there was more water in the ocean as a result. So, for example, in Lisbon, you walk down Rua Augusta. Well, Rua Augusta was under about 20 feet of water back in 1147. So they
Wow.
had to take some of their boats across and carry over their mobile towers. Anyways, in this particular case, The mobile tower got caught in the sand, and the Moors were able to burn it down. So they were not happy. Next slide.
There you go.
Oh, I it's in the wrong order, but anyways.
Oh, actually, I covered this. I did cover
I
this.
should have done this before the other ones. At the siege of the city of Lisbona, which was the name, the Moorish name of Lisbon in 1147, there was a big wall and a very big iron gate. So the big wall, that's actually a picture from the Aurelian wall in Rome, but we know from evidence, archaeological evidence, that it was basically the same wall. It was the Romans were building them all over the place around Europe to keep the Visigoths and others out. So they had this big wall. You know, the walls were about 60 feet high. And then even higher where there was where they had their armaments. So you'd had a 60-foot wall, and then about another 20 feet of additional wall that you would then put your archers on, or you'd even have a catapult, for example, on it. So that means that an 80-foot tower was actually not sufficient for doing this, because you can't just go at the wall. You have to go where the archers are, because there are stairs there, so that you can get off your tower and then climb down the stairs and then get into the courtyard and then do your slaughtering of all the people there. So it required a bigger tower. Okay, so they were sad that you know, their all their toys had been burnt. So yeah, so the next step was they decided, okay, we're going to build an even bigger tower. Yeah, bigger's better. Finally, we built an even bigger mobile tower, 95 feet high, almost 30 meters. Our tower had firs around it, which made it fireproof. That was a big difference, because the previous tower had been burnt down. It didn't have firs on it. So not only was it too short, but it didn't have firs. And firs made a big difference. It meant that it wasn't going to burn down.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But how long would this have taken, Phil? I mean, I'm thinking they've got Lisbon or Lisbon there. They've had their first bit of kit destroyed, or their set of, you know, their fleet of technological anti-siege vehicles burnt down. Building this thing must have taken ages.
Yeah, it took, to conquer took, I believe it was almost 4 months.
And so where were the people inside getting all their supplies from? I mean, is this a self-sufficient castle? Is that how it worked? That people could survive for months on end inside a castle?
No, and they were starving.
Okay.
By the end of the 3 months, they were starving. And water was a problem too.
Of course.
Yeah. So and there are stories of how people, you know, got out, and the Crusaders, you know, teased them, threw them a bit of food, and then they would throw rocks at them, and so all of that stuff is described in this document.
Wow.
Yeah. So once, and so once they wheeled this 95-foot tower up to the wall to a place where they could disembark, so they had a little drawbridge thing that would fall down from the tower to allow people to step across, and so they surrendered. They're starving. They've had a number of people injured because there were rocks being thrown over and flaming arrows and all the good stuff that comes with a siege. So they gave up.
Wow.
And that's how the castle was taken. So Fernando Captivo, in the name of the king. So Captivo was the local army captain for Lisbon in King Alfonso Henrique's army. And Hervé Glanville, who was the English head and most senior person. And they granted a truce, and basically the truce involves exchanging prisoners. So the idea is, okay, we give you 5 of our guys, you give us 5 of your guys, and if you guys break the truce, we'll kill your 5 guys, and if we break the truce, you'll kill our 5 guys. And that's essentially how they work out a truce. And there were some other interesting parts to this. There was a group from Cologne, the Germans, and they said, well, we want to go in first. And so they went up the tower and went in and did their raping and pillaging and killing and slaughtering. And then finally, Alfonso Henrique said, whoa, stop. We said we'd divide up the spoils, and you guys are taking it all. So yes, they ended up stopping. And but yes, there was all kinds of nasty stuff that went on during this. Not as bad as the thousands and thousands of typical crusader type battles where on either side 20,000-30,000 people were killed. So it wasn't that bad, but it was still kind of bloody.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they did is Lisbon had a bishop, a Christian bishop, but it wasn't a Catholic bishop. It was a Visigoth descendant bishop. And the difference between the Visigoth Christians is they didn't believe in the Holy Trinity like the Catholics did. So they killed him and put in a new bishop afterwards, an Englishman, Bishop Gilbert. Yeah. So, and when they came to Lisbon, Lisbon had about 100,000 people living in it in 1147. It was a major trading center between Africa and Europe. And it didn't just have Moors. it had Moors, it had Christians, it had Jews, it had all kinds of different people. And it was described by the Catholics, because this guy who wrote about this said it had all the cesspool of human behavior. So it was a happening place.
Yes, and it's come a long way. Wow.
And I have one last slide of that.
Yes, King Afonso.
Yes. So King Afonso, and on October 25th, 1147, after 4 months of siege, entered the city of Lisbon. And the siege was the siege was won by a tower, not by Martim Moniz. So
amazing.
That's what really happened.
Well,
and if you ask some Portuguese people how was Lisbon conquered, they'll still tell you the story about Martim Moniz.
Of course.
Even though it was a fake story, because people my age, they were taught about Martim Moniz in school.
And has it been discredited publicly, or is that just like a kind of secret in a way?
It has been discredited. I think I even read on in Wikipedia. Yeah, it has the real story in Wikipedia.
Wow. Steve's saying there, that's amazing and quite different than holding the door open for your warrior friends. Absolutely, Steve, you're right. And just like last time when we were hearing about some rascals going about their Machiavellian shenanigans, same occurs this time. And inevitably, Trump comes up. Steve again commenting on that rascal who changed his genealogy so that he didn't look like a Spanish sympathizer. Steve was asking if he's related to Trump, and Gianni in Belgium says, "Why always Trump must be mentioned in every conversation?" He's a bit of a go-to guy when any shenanigans come up, I think, and Machiavellian behavior. And Chris says, "Remember when you would go days without hearing anything about what the US president did or said? Good times." Amazing.
But it's true about every American election. Presidential election is big news all over the world for a few months.
Yeah.
And
the leader of the world.
Because Trump is so controversial.
Yeah. Well, as Steve says there, you and Gianni are both right. There's too much Trump talk. Looking forward to post-election. And Chris adds, regardless of the result, you'll hear much more of him, at least for a while. I think that's right. And I don't know if this is a direct sort of metaphor, but like a case of syphilis that lasted for 4 years, it may go away, but not quickly or without permanent brain damage. Why don't you tell us how you really feel about Donald Trump, Chris? And I thought this was a sort of play on French words that Gianni was coming up with there. Godfrey of Bouyon, first Flemish crusader. But actually, that sounds like it might be a real character in history. A stocky build. If he was called Godfrey of Bouyon, you'd expect him to have a stocky build. Pardon my sense of humor there. But you're aware of this character, are you?
Yes. Yeah, he was from the First Crusade.
Right.
The hero in the First Crusade.
Yeah.
And Flemish, I always thought of him as being French. Bouillon is a French name, but he might have actually been from Belgium, because Belgium is half French and half Flemish.
Well, this is where Gianni is speaking from tonight, so I'm guessing you're right. Phil, thank you for that. And I have to say, you've done so much for my appreciation, not just of Portuguese culture and history, but history generally. This idea, that moment when you described when it was called Lisbon, what it was like in the 12th century, to have, Jews, Moors, Christians, all kinds of people converging there because it was such an exciting place to be. So you'd have that merchant level, wouldn't you, of life? You'd have the religious level of life, and you'd have the warrior level of life, and it just reminded me of the scene in Star Wars where they're in that bar, and they're all different kinds of creatures in that bar.
Yes,
Lisbon would have been like that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, incredible. So thank you so much for going through that and exposing. We can take some pride tonight in exposing fake news. Brilliant. Anything you want to add to that story, or your what you've discovered with that?
Well, my next story is going to be about Afonso Ari and the Battle of Ourique. And what do I think really happened at the Battle of Ourique? Because again, there's from the 16th century, there's a very religious interpretation of what happened at the Battle of Ourique. And I don't believe any of it in that religious interpretation happened. Yeah.
Fantastic. So no more Mr. Nice Guys. Gloves off. Roy, the
I'm not here. Sorry, I'm not hearing.
Happy to come back. Oh, okay. We might have a little bit of a tech flutter. Steve is ready for that next story, ready to binge it. So Steve would be happy for us to be Netflix now, so he could just press the button and just hear it straight away. But if you could come back in a couple of weeks' time again, Phil Phippé Sylvain, that would be awesome, so we can hear that.
Yeah.
Tremendous. And apologies once more for the miscommunication or the technology breakdown or whatever it was that caused us not to connect earlier in the show.
Yeah. Well, I think it was because you'd sent me a StreamYard connection 2 weeks ago. So I just reused that one. And so it must have gone to wherever that was. And then when I wasn't
okay,
then I went to, the one you just sent me must be the one I should be using.
Okay, yeah. They're like avocados or fish. They have to be used fresh.
Yeah.
And for this last question then, because Charles, great question for us. If you were someone going to Portugal for the first time, where would you go to eat first? So upon landing, I guess, what is a must-eat place that you would take a guest to on arrival in Portugal? What's yours, Phil?
The one I enjoyed quite a bit was actually chicken. Portugal's well known for fish, and I'm just thinking of another. I'm now thinking of two places: a fish one, Romero, and then the other one. I can't remember the name. It's near Restauradora, and it has apparently the best chicken piri piri, and I had it, and it was very good.
And is that in Lisbon?
Yeah, both of them were in Lisbon.
All right, so there you go. That's Phil's answers, Canadian Phil's answers to that. Mine also in Lisbon, Charles. If I were to meet and greet you in Lisbon, I to Sodré, where Time Out Market is, and we might have a coffee and a pastel de nata just to get you acclimatized in the Time Out Market. And then we were
great.
Then we ferry across the water from Cais de Sodré, and we cross the Tagus, the Tejo, over the river, and on a ferry boat that the Portuguese use. It's not really a tourist thing. It's for workers to get back and forth from south to north of the river. And we would go to the south of the river into Almada, to a little port little town called Casillas. And there is the Farol seafood restaurant, right where the boat disembarks, about less than a minute away from the landing. We would go into the Farol restaurant and we would eat fresh seafood overlooking the river there. It's an amazing experience. Not expensive, not fancy, but absolutely delicious.
Oh, that sounds great.
We'll have to do it, Phil, sometime. You, me, and Charles will have to do that one day. Oh, and we've got another one here. Jani is saying, best restaurant in the East Centre, Casa de Velha Fonte, na Casa do Amoreira. I'm not sure exactly what that means. In the East Centre, is that the East Central Portugal? Perhaps you can let Charles know. I don't know. Maybe you guys are friends already, or we have got a thing in Expats Portugal of our favourite restaurants. That's a developing resource for people as well. So maybe that could be popped in there, Jani, as well. No shortage of answers to that question, I suspect, for you, Charles. And we look forward to the clash of the cold beers and the eating of the food mentioned there. So thank you, everybody. And a special thank you to you, Phil. It was great to catch up with you eventually and to go through that story, and looking forward to 2 weeks' time.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it too.
Cool. So it'll be a bon noite. Bon noite to you.
Boa noite.
And to everybody else as well. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Much appreciated. Thanks for sticking around for this extended version of the Portugal Show. And I'll be back in the morning with Ivan of Relish Magazine, the online, your foodie friend online. We'll be talking about food some more in the morning. With the new issue of Relish Magazine has been published. And Jani, just saying quickly there, Idana de Avelia is the town, I believe, there. And a night all from Mark Rigby. Take care. Bye for now. Ciao, ciao. Abraço.